SuperMax Drum Sander. Let's talk about it. So I made an investment in this piece of equipment for my small wood shop, and it's amazing. I love it so much. It's an awesome tool. It definitely saves time in the sanding process, but it's just so much more fun to use this versus using my, just standard everyday run-of-the-mill small belt sander. So I love it so much. So today I want to talk about my buying experience in buying this SuperMax 1938 drum sander, how long it took to arrive, what the buying experience, where I bought it, the shipping, everything like that, and what to expect from this machine, and then my initial thoughts. So I've been using it for probably about a month now, and it's like thumbs up all around for me. It's an amazing machine. So I purchased my SuperMax Drum Sander from Beaver Industrial Supply, and it was a very seamless process. Just buy it on their website, they ship it to you. So it took about 1 week to arrive, which was awesome. I wasn't sure how long it would take, but one week was perfect. So for buying this machine, it's big. As you can see, I have a very narrow shop, and this is a big machine. It takes up a majority of the width of my shop. So let's just look at the dimensions first. So overall it's about 42 inches wide. When the outfeed and infeed tables are down, it's about 26 inches deep. So it's definitely going to take up some space. Now I did get the casters, so this thing is on wheels, so I can just roll it around, which is nice. I can just roll it up against the wall, and then when I want to use it, I don't run over my toe and I just roll it out like this. This is a heavy machine, as you can see. Like even just rolling it, it's a bit of a struggle. So this is a heavy machine, and I was very anxious about the logistics of getting it down into these few steps into my basement workshop. And that's something that as I was watching review videos and stuff, I just wasn't really finding it. So I definitely want to share some of that experience. If there's anybody like me who worries about getting a 400 pound piece of equipment into their shop. So this machine with Beaver Industrial Supply, again, that's where I purchased it. It ships via, my machine shipped via FedEx Freight. The FedEx driver actually ended up kind of helping me get it inside, which I greatly appreciate, and he didn't sign up for that, so I was like so thankful. You do have to pay an extra $150 for the freight shipping charge when you purchase it. I think that's pretty much across the board wherever you purchase it. So in terms of the boxes, so as I mentioned, it comes in 3 boxes on a pallet. So basically this part of it, the drum and the motor, which the motor is definitely the heavy part. When you're lifting it, you can feel that the majority of the weight is here. So this comes in one box, which is the largest box, and obviously the most difficult to move and to work with. I think the motor in this part of the box itself is probably around 200 pounds, maybe a little bit under 200 pounds. Okay, and then the second box is the conveyor belt. So that's not bad. I think that box is maybe around 40 to 50 pounds. And then the stand is the third box, and that is also around 40 to 50 pounds, I would say. So those are the 3 main boxes. And then there's a couple of extra things that you can add on. One is the infeed and outfeed tables, which I definitely suggest. I added those on. So there's one on each side. They just easily snap up and makes it very convenient to, gives you more workspace. You definitely need something. So I think that's a worthwhile purchase. And then the other extra thing were the casters. So if you get the stand, it'll just come with regular feet, but if you want to have the ability to be rolling it around, which definitely I would highly recommend, especially if you're tight on space, then get the casters. That will be an additional box. So the infeed and outfeed tables were an extra box, so that's 4 boxes, and then the 5th box was the casters. And I think that was everything. So that's kind of how the machine is going to arrive to you. Now this thing, it ended up costing me around $2,200 when all is said and done, everything that I added, and then the shipping fee and everything like that, which is a lot of money, and it's definitely the most money that I've probably ever spent on any tool. But this was a big investment for me, and I thought about it for a long time, but I wanted to I wanted to invest in something that was going to make my processes more efficient. So it was kind of like, okay, I can hire somebody or I can find a machine to kind of like save some of my time. And I know that sanding is something that I spend a lot of time doing. So I was like, you know what? How can we save time in the sanding? And this is what it was. And again, I had my eye on it for a long time. I did a lot of research. There's a lot of options. There are definitely cheaper versions, or not versions, but cheaper brands and other companies that make drum sanders, which are very comparable in size. But I'm glad that I did a lot of research, because I probably would have bought a different brand if I would have just gone on my like initial impulse and kind of just was a little bit more worried about getting a lower price point. But then the more research I did, the more clear it was to me that this was the one that I wanted to purchase. And I'm so happy with it. Okay, so we talked about the boxes. This is definitely a 2-person job, without a doubt. Maybe even 3 people, depending on how strong you are and what your situation is. But, you know, you moving this, and then, you know, the assembly is not bad at all, but obviously you have to get this drum and motor up onto the stand once it's assembled. So keep that in mind. And there's a lot of very clear instructions, which we're going to talk about, where you can basically cut the box away. But that's what I want to talk about next, is the instructions. So this thing was actually, I was really worried. I hate buying stuff that's like so difficult to assemble, and it was like, oh god, what's this going to take? I actually even put it off for like a week or two. It was just sitting here in the box because I was just like anticipating how much work it's going to be to put this thing together. But it was so easy. I was so surprised. So basically you assemble the stand, very simple, very minimal hardware. The instructions are so clear, which is like such an amazing thing about buying stuff from, you know, just reputed companies and reputed brands. They really put a lot of love into their product, and like the manual was so clear to read. It had very clear pictures. It was just honestly like the best assembly experience you could ever want to have with something like this. So you put the stand together, and then the next step, you get this drum part on top of the stand. So again, that's the heavy part. That's the part where you're definitely going to need help. I saw that some people said that they like laid the stand down on their side and attached this and then like lifted it up. Now my stand had wheels on it, so I was kind of like, I don't know if that's going to work for me, but you know, I was able to lift the motor, the drum and motor up onto it with just one other person, and it honestly wasn't that bad. If you're a strong, burly person, you can definitely do it with 2 people. You can definitely do it. Okay, so again, the instructions are very clear. You'll definitely want to read through your instruction manual. Get the manual from the drum sander box, because that's going to have all the details, and they tell you how to cut away the box so that it's easier to lift up, and that you're not like wrangling with the packing material trying to lift this thing and like tripping over stuff. You basically cut away the box so that it's just there, and then you can very easily lift it up. And, you know, when I opened this, I was like not sure what kind of assembly I was going to be looking at just for like this part of it, but truly there was none. You just lift it out of the box. You take away a couple of pieces of wood that was like used for like shipping and stabilization, and you just set it on here and it's good to go. The assembly was like so minimal for this machine. It's amazing. I love that. So again, it's just when you buy from a good company and you invest in high quality tools, the experience is honestly worth it. But it takes time to get to this place. Like I'm 3 years into running my woodworking business, and you know, I'm just at the place where I can buy something like this, but I'm certainly not buying something like this every month or every few months or even every year. So it's an investment, but once you get to that place and it makes sense for your operation, it's definitely something to think about. For the machine itself, so basically we talked about this is the motor, and then there's this little smaller motor which is for the conveyor belt. The drum sander motor has a small cord which you plug into this conveyor belt motor, and then the conveyor belt motor has a long cord which then you plug into your outlet, and that powers the machine. So you only need one outlet to run the machine, and then obviously you also need your dust collection as well, so you would need to plan for that too. And then there's just basically you control the conveyor belt with this switch. You click it, and then it has adjustable speed. So that, you turn that on, and then this lever turns on the drum itself right here. So there's two switches to get it into operation. And then something I think which is special about this machine, which I actually haven't noticed that it comes into effect when I'm using it yet, but it has something called IntelliSand, where if you have your belt going too fast and it's like bogging down the drum, then it will automatically regulate the speed of the conveyor belt to like make up for that and make sure that it's going the right pace so that it's doing its job effectively of sanding your material. So when I use my conveyor belt, I mean, obviously I spent a lot of money for this machine, so I'm certainly not abusing it by any means, because that's just the type of person that I am. I'm very cautious about how I spend my money, and I also, when I buy something, I take extremely good care of it. That just comes naturally to me. So I don't want to push this thing to its edge, and I definitely haven't at all. So I usually keep my speed around 40 or 50. If I'm doing like smaller things, I do 50. If I'm doing the larger things, then I feel that it needs to be going a little bit slower. So I feel that 40 is like the comfortable spot for me. I've never gone above 50, so I don't even know what that world is like. But if you get this machine, you can certainly try it out. But again, as I mentioned, I am just like babying it, even though it's all dusty, but it is a sander. But I just really just, you know, I'm just taking care of her. But then it has this knob up here, which is obviously important. This is what brings the drum up and down, and it tells you which direction is down, and then it tells you a quarter turn takes off is 1/64 of an inch. So I typically do quarter turns when I'm taking my material through. And I usually do 2 to 3 passes. It depends on what it is. But it has a gauge over here so you can see what depth you're at, and you can adjust it accordingly. This does require like a little bit of a learning curve to figure out where you need your depth to be so that it's touching your material enough, but also not being too aggressive. So sometimes it's like, again, as I mentioned, I'm like really conservative with it. So sometimes on my first pass, it's like the drum's not even touching the material. You have to kind of like develop a sensitivity and get used to where it needs to be. Because on the front, it has these 2 rollers on the front and the back of the drum. So you can't, it's a little bit hard to tell like exactly where the sandpaper itself is gonna hit versus like these rollers that help glide the material through. Okay, so now when you're using this machine, again, it's awesome. And if you're sanding a lot of just like flat material like I am, I have a lot of products I'm just like selling I'm doing a lot of repetitive sanding of the exact same type of thing. It works really well. Now this machine, it definitely will take thickness off of your piece. So you have to remember that. And the more times you go through, obviously the more thickness it's taking off. So you have to remember that, account for that. Also, you know, if your wood is like curved or bowed or anything like that, you also have to make sure that you like shim it up or do something so that it will, you know, go through evenly, and the material that it takes off, like you come out with an even end product and it's not like wonky because of the material. So, you know, keep that in mind. It's whatever you put into the machine is like, you're not going to magically get something perfect out of it. Like you're going to have to work with it a little bit. And there are other videos that I saw on YouTube where they were putting something that was like, I think kind of like bowed through this, and they basically were just able to kind of put it on another piece of wood and then do a little bit of shimming. So it was like going through it as level as possible. And then on each pass, they were able to get like that more straight, smooth surface. Okay, so as I mentioned, this is a 1938 drum sander. So the numbers 19 means on one pass it can do up to 19 inches wide, and then you can flip it and send it through again, and getting you up to the 38 inches of width of material. So I haven't actually done something so big that it goes beyond the 19 inches. The most I've done is like maybe like 7 or 8, but I actually have something coming up that I'm going to be testing out the full sanding capacity. So I'm looking forward to seeing how that works. Basically, something about this particular machine is that there's something over here that you can adjust, and it basically will make the conveyor belt like tilt ever so slightly so that you're not getting like a groove at the point where it ends here, and then you turn it around and you sand the other side. So it's like it will seamlessly sand the two sides. Okay, so now this one, obviously you're not going to be using this machine without dust collection. That's a non-negotiable. So it has a dust collection connection. I have connected it to this little magnetic adapters that I got on Etsy, which make it very easy for me to move my dust collection from my belt sander over to the drum sander. So basically this just connects magnetically and then it comes off very easily. So this kind of thing is really handy if you're not going to have like a dedicated dust collection always connected to it. And then I hung up these things on the ceiling that I got at Home Depot. They were only like $1 or something. You definitely want your dust collection to be coming from above, otherwise like it's gonna be kind of like in the way of your belt and stuff like that. So that's just, in my small shop I had to kind of rig it up a little bit, but I found it handy to have it coming down from the ceiling, and then when I'm using it, it's just, I'm not usually using it in this direction, but that makes it more convenient that this is just not in your way. Basically, you know, there is some maintenance that you have to do for this machine, obviously, like any machine. It does require some maintenance. So basically, if you open up this little hood, which mine obviously like kind of already needs to be replaced and cleaned out, but you can, you know, it has like a monthly maintenance sticker here, which again, I'm overdue on that, but you need to really maintain it. And it tells you everything that you need to do to maintain it. But I usually try to keep this a little bit more clean of dust, but as you can see, I didn't clean it the last time I used it, so it is what it is. But I also probably need to, I think I need to replace my sandpaper, even though it's actually still doing a good job, even though it looks terrible. But I just ordered some and got some, so I'll be able to replace it. And I do have this little rubber thing. I'm still trying to figure out exactly how to use it with the drum sander, because I'm finding that I've had them before and they were more stiff. Like, I'm finding this one to be a little too rubbery, where it's like, it's not cleaning anything off of it. Like, none of this, like this is just like permanently here. I've tried to use this and it didn't work. So if you're doing high volume sanding, which I definitely am, like just plan on you're gonna go through sandpaper, because you obviously want your sander to be doing a good job. You don't want to, you know, you want to make sure you have some good abrasive left on your sandpaper, which again, this one really has seen better days. So as far as the sanding itself, this is a really amazing machine. It's very easy to use, very easy to, like, very minimal learning curve. There's a very minimal learning curve to figuring out how to use this machine. I'd actually like read a lot of reviews and heard from other people that it's kind of finicky, and not this particular one, but just in general, drum sanders are a little bit finicky and like kind of hard to get used to them, or like just figure out exactly how to make it work for you. But so I was a little bit nervous about that part of it. But this machine was very easy to use. Like, I had no issue with it at all. It's just like, you set your depth, you run it through, you can tell from the sound how much material, if it's like really taking a lot of material off, or it's just like a light touch on your piece. So you get a feel for it, and it's very easy to learn, actually. So this is a huge upgrade, because I can just stand here and run hundreds of pieces through it basically in, you know, a much smaller amount of time than I would be spending with my belt sander and my orbital sander. So as I mentioned before, I usually do 2 to 3 passes, depending on what you're doing, what your material's like, you know, but you'll be able to get a visual of like if you need to keep going further, or if 2 or 3 passes is good enough. But I find that 2 to 3 is really perfect for me. Maybe in the rare instance I need to go through a 4th, but I try to, you know, again, it's taking thickness off, so you want to keep that in mind. So the more aggressive you go, the more thickness you're taking off of your material. And then when you move your pieces through, you want to stagger them so that your sandpaper is not just getting worn in the same spot. So you want to, you know, make use of your edges. stagger your pieces so you're getting a more even wear on your sandpaper. The drum sander, this is not your final sanding. You still have to do additional sanding. You have to, you're gonna have to do more cleanup with your orbital sander or whatever it is. This is, I believe, 80 grit. It came with one thing of 80 grit sandpaper. The replacement I bought is 100 grit. I feel like 100 is more appropriate to my typical use, and obviously you can put higher grit sandpaper on this and you can do all of your sanding on the drum sander, which eventually I may get to that place, but right now I'm just keeping the 1 grit because you obviously have to change out your sandpaper if you want to do that. So you got to go back and forth between your different grits if you want to utilize this for more of your full spectrum sanding, which is, I probably should be doing that, to be honest with you. So I did some test sanding with some of the main products that I'm selling and the things that I'm making over and over and over again. So first we have the slim pockets. So we're gonna put them through the drum sander. Again, they're gonna be staggered. The 2 passes, it took 53 seconds, which is great. I think if I would have done these on my belt sander, which I didn't do that experiment, but this would have definitely taken me, I would say probably 3 minutes. 3 or 4 minutes at least. Okay, so next we have the test with the regular pockets. I did again a set of 3, and I did 3 passes. Now for the regular pockets, I'm also staggering them on the belt, and it's going through fine, it's going through smooth, and 3 of the regular pockets took 1 minute and 35 seconds to sand. Now finally we have the large pockets. So the large pockets, these are about 8 inches wide and about 15 inches long. Now I've found with the large pockets that they do better when they go through alone versus staggering them. I mean, the space is pretty limited to stagger them, but I was feeling the machine getting a little bit overworked. Again, I'm very cautious with it, so it's probably not even the case, but I was just feeling sorry for the machine, so I went 1 at a time with the large pockets through. So for the set of 3, I did 3 passes for each pocket, and that took 2 minutes and 34 seconds. So this is my drum sander. Again, SuperMax 1938 drum sander. I love it so much. It's an amazing machine. I'm just taking the tables down, and it's great. Highly recommend it. Definitely get yourself the casters because you want to be able to get this thing out of the way when you're done with it.